Aye, coffee. The blood and sugar of the United Kingdom. Yes. Hey everyone, what's going on? And welcome to another video. In this one, we will be talking about the recruitment process for the store manager role for the co-op group. So let's get right into it. So before the whole process begins, and start explaining how it works, I believe it's worth mentioning that just be wary of which company, of which co-op you're applying for, sorry. I've worked for the main co-op, which is the easiest way to identify that in a street is the blue logo on a grey background. I'm sure you've seen a store like that, they are everywhere. This one has over 2,400 stores, and they are the main co-op and they are countrywide. And then you've got two others. One is the central co-op, which operates in the central part of the country. I'm not sure if that's completely true. I believe that's been lifted soon, or like that. I think I've heard something, but I'm not too sure. And then you have southern co-op. Central co-op, the easiest way to identify it, if you're going on the street, it's the light blue on a white background. And then southern co-op, which operates in the southern part of the UK, is dark blue in a green background, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if it's dark blue or what color it is, but it's in a green background. Why there is three different ones, I believe there used to be a whole, but then they separated for financial reasons. I'm not too sure about that, but just be wary. I've worked for the main co-op, so the one that has the bank, the insurance, all of that, that's the one I've worked for. So just wanted to clarify that just to make sure that I get the process right for you guys. So the recruitment process for the store manager role. Overall, it took me about 3 weeks from start to finish. So from start to offer, it took me about 3 weeks to get the whole thing done. And this is divided into 2 stages, or 3 if you include the application. So the first stage, if you wanted to include this one, it's the application stage. Nothing to know about. Put your details in, the job that you're applying for, salary expectations, salary required, your current employer, CV, cover letter, all of that sort of thing, and then send it away. It took 2 weeks or 1 week and a half for them to come back to me, and it was a very nice lady from the recruitment team who came back to me asking when would it be possible to conduct a qualifications interview, which is basically a phone interview. So obviously we went ahead with that. That will be obviously stage 2. Nothing to know about as well. The phone interview, it's very much to just know what your skills are, what your qualifications are, why you want to leave your current employer, why you want to join co-op, and things like how long have you been working for the current business and whatnot. Things like that, just to understand if you qualify for a store manager role, like if you have experience with P&L reports, if you have experience with like KPIs, scheduling, rotas, staff budgeting, all of that sort of thing. They will ask you those questions in there, but that's a simple yes or no question, or I've been doing this for this long, so nothing to know about that. The phone interview took around 45 minutes, and it had one competency-based question, if I'm not mistaken, which was how do you motivate your team to achieve, or how do you motivate your team to achieve a target that you set out for them. I believe that she only asked me one, or she asked me one because I was quite chatty on this day, and so was she. So I think we took a little bit longer than we probably should have. So she only asked me one. But it might be the case that they might ask you more. It might be the case that they might not ask you any at all. It doesn't mean that you get it or don't get it. It just depends on the recruiter person. That's unfortunately how the recruitment works in the UK, which is something that we will be discussing in that video. But moving on from that, it takes around 45 minutes, like I said. Nothing to know about. There's no reason to be nervous on that call. It's literally, think about it, it's someone on the other line trying to find out if you're the good person for this role, or if you qualify to even interview for the role. And then it usually takes 1-2 days. I think for me it took 3 for them to come back to me and say, you know what, you sounded good on the phone. Let's get you in for a stage 3, which is, or stage 2, depending on what you look at it, which is a face-to-face interview. What happens then is usually you would schedule the interview a week after you, or whatever day you're free, depending as well on the evaluation of the availability, of the interviewer. I think she will give you a few time slots and a few days that you could potentially put yourself into the week after, and then she would schedule you in. This interview would then take place in the closest store of the area you're applying for. Let's say you're applying in Bristol, which is where I worked in. Bristol has around 20 stores, or 21 stores now. You would be having the interview in one of these 21s. Doesn't necessarily apply all the time. Like, for example, the store that I was running, the store that I interviewed in, actually didn't belong to the area, but it was the most convenient one for the interview and for myself, so they ended up scheduling it there. These stores in Co-op might look small a lot of times from the front, but believe me, their space in the back sometimes it's way bigger than the shop floor ever was, just because the buildings are quite old, and a lot of times they have things like meeting rooms and screen rooms and all this crazy stuff. So you'll be having a meeting in one of those environments. So how does stage 3 look like? So for a store manager, you would be interviewed by the area manager who is hiring you, or is interviewing you basically for the area that you applied for, and a note taker, which is usually an area manager from the closest area. So in my case, it was the area manager for Bristol and the area manager for Bath, which the cities are right next to each other basically. So they are in the same area. That's not a bad thing. It might seem intimidating. Oh, I'm being interviewed by 2 area managers. Why? It's not, believe me, because let's say that the area you applied for, store manager says, it doesn't quite fit for my style of team that I'm looking for. The other person might actually say, you know what, I like him, I will take him into my area, I will offer him the job. Let's see if he's willing to maybe relocate, or if he's willing to commute a little bit further down to join my area, and obviously your salary then would kind of adjust in regards to how long you would have to drive. So that's not a bad thing. How does the interview actually look like? So the interview can last anywhere from 1 hour to 2 hours. Mine lasted quite, I think 1 hour and a half, if I'm not mistaken. But it lasted that long because the area manager that so my boss when I was working for Co-op, he was quite chatty, and so was I. We found quite a few things in common, so we were quite open and honest with each other, which is really spectacular when you find someone that interviews you like that. So it was really good. But how does the interview now really look like? What kind of questions do they ask? So one thing that I will say is on the interview, on the email that they send you to confirm the interview dates, location, and who's the interviewer and who is interviewing you basically, they will send 3 attachments. One attachment is why Co-op, so basically why are you joining Co-op, why should you join Co-op, things like what we do for community, what our stores look like, what our future looks like. That's the kind of thing they will send you on that one. The second attachment is what they call a candidate preparation guide, which is really good, which you can also find on their website, which I will link in the description if you are looking for it. Just scroll down that big page because they have everything together, like funeral and insurance and all that. Just scroll down to the food section and find your store manager role, and you will find the attachment, which is the candidate preparation guide. And then the third one is eligibility, the right to work things, like what you need to bring, which is usually you need to bring passport and national insurance letter. And nowadays you also have to bring a code, share a code from the government to your employer after Brexit. If you are foreign like me, you will have to do that. It's like based on the settlement and all that. So those are the 3 attachments that come down to it. And then the one thing that is worth mentioning before I say what's the interview structure look like. The 2 area managers that I'm interviewing, I don't know if this changed recently, they don't have access to your CV. So the recruitment team basically put your name forward saying this guy qualifies for your interview. And this is something that I should have mentioned in the phone. hence why they call it a qualification phone interview, basically, which is the two hiring managers don't have access to your CV. Therefore, they will then ask you, can you walk us through your experience? How many years of experience have you got? What kind of businesses you worked for in the past? Which is a really fun, interesting way, I guess you could say it, way of doing it, because that way they won't judge your CV, they will judge the person. I personally believe that you should judge a CV, because I'm not the kind of person who is good with words and good talking, although I keep rambling on these videos, I apologize. So a lot of the times I would only be hired if, like I said, I have a really person that I connect with, or a person looks at my CV rather than my interview a lot of the times, or have a work experience. So it depends. It can work out, it might not work out. It worked out in my case, and I'm not very chatty, so if you are afraid of that, then don't be afraid of that. Sorry, it's yeah, don't be afraid to be afraid, mate. Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah, so they don't have access to your CV, so they will ask you first thing an overview of your career, like what your achievements are and all that. So like I said, it's divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is around competency-based questions, around skills, and around achievements in your career. And then part 2 is the behavioral scenario questions, like give me an example of a time that you did something, that sort of questions. And then part 3, which is basically questions that you may have for them, and you should always have a few questions for the interview as well, whether that is about role, about community, about what your plans are for the future, like what you want from me from the role, what would be your main objective for the store that I've applied for, things like that. So those are the 3 parts that a face-to-face interview would look like. Now, I really do advise you guys to check out that candidate preparation guide, because they literally lay down the work for you. All you have to do is answer what they ask. And it looks like this. I know you guys can't see it from the camera, but I will put right here. I will put what they call a co-op colleague behavioral framework, basically. And also something that they have in the preparation guide is the way that they expect you to answer the questions, which is using the STAR method, which for those who don't know, a STAR method, STAR, which is basically situation, task, action, and result. It's just a structure of a response. To be completely honest, every answer that you give will already have these, but what I did in this interview was I actually said what I was saying. Like one of the questions that he asked me, can you tell me about a time where you had to improve a KPI or a metric, they asked, and how did you go about to engage your team in improving this metric? Things like waste or turnover, for example, a scanning accuracy, it could be like for like, or a waste routine. It can be any metric that you choose to from your past. It can be anything. I answered literally the situation in this answer is my team had this, my team did this, I realized this, and then you have the task is what did you do, and what kind of target did you put yourself through in order to develop that, the action, so what did you physically do to get to where you needed to be, and then the result is everything that you've done, what is the result, and I literally said the situation is the task that I had, the action that I took, and the result that we had, was the following. And that's how I've done that. So they do expect you to follow that result. Obviously, if you don't follow it, it's not like they will say, sorry mate, the interview's over, you're not really following the structure that we asked you to. But keep in mind that co-op is very structure-oriented business for some reason. But yeah, that slight comment will come on the experience that I had with co-op. Sorry guys, don't mean to put you off. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, really. One tip, and this is a tip that I would say to any interview that you go to, just be yourself, try and engage with the interviewer. If the interviewer doesn't engage with you, to be completely honest, is even if you fail that interview, it's not your fault, because it is their job to listen to you, but it is their job to make a connection with yourself, because that makes the whole difference. For someone like me, who is not the chattiest person in the world and needs to be physically involved in the work in order for people to find out how good I could be, that is an essential part. So if that's not the case, which I'm sure it won't happen, most co-op area managers are quite engaging and they're quite chatty, so you won't have that problem, I don't think. But that's pretty much it, guys. If there is any questions around the recruitment process, by all means, and something that I should be saying is, how long did it take for them to actually give me an offer? Within half a week, I had an offer sent out to the email, and all you had to do then is basically wait for them to do their screening checks, like ETWs and right to works and stuff like that, and references and things like that. And then they will pop a conditional offer for you, which is while they're doing those. And once that's all done, then they will send an actual offer with a contract attached to it, all done system online. You don't have to do anything paper related. And so yeah, that I think was the final part of this video. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and a like if you enjoyed the video. And I will carry on doing my co-op experience video, which is coming right up. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. If you have any questions, by all means, drop me a comment, drop me a PM. It's completely up to you, and I'm here to help. Cheers. Bye. That was so weird. Cheers. Bye. That's better.